Testing.
It's funny because I was in here trying to like see if I was talking loud, if you could hear me on the other side. So I was like pausing it here, right? You can't hear me anymore, right? And then I can unpause it. And I was making a bunch of weird noises, and Katie was watching me without me knowing. So then I turned around, she was just like, I said, "Don't judge me, all right?" Well, Aubrey Howard, welcome to the show of the Unnamed Podcast, since I don't have a name for it yet.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, I mean, still trying to figure out what I want to do on the podcast, what I want to do with it, where I want to go. Obviously, I told you I wanted to talk about like scary stories. Then I also wanted to talk about like mental health and stuff like that. But being that it's like my first episode and my only podcast I've ever done, I'm kind of nervous and don't really even know what to talk about. I literally thought about it last night. I was like, I need to put some stuff together, come up with something to talk about, and then use that tomorrow morning, and I didn't even do it. Katie woke me up this morning at like 9:30, and she was like, "Come on, we have to go clean." I was like, "No, I'm going to cancel." Turned over the other direction. I didn't cancel.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what interesting stories I have to tell because my experiences are not necessarily the most paranormal.
You said you had some stuff last night.
But I had some stuff, so I have my own things.
All right. Well, tell me one of them.
Okay. So the one I was going to tell you, this is my ghost story, okay? Okay, so Jared, my boyfriend, was working out of town during the week or during the weekend. So he'd work in town on the week, and then on the weekend he would go out of town because he like fixes cars and does stuff like that on the side. So he would leave out of town on like every weekend. And so we lived at this old base. It was an old Air Force base, and so we had a house there. We loved it. It was amazing. And so we have some good memories there, and I don't know. Anyway, so it was one of these weekends that he was out of town, and it was a Saturday morning, and it was pretty early, and I remember waking up to the feeling that somebody was sitting at the end of my bed and got up from the end of my bed. So basically, the mattress that we had in that house at the time was really creaky, and like every time you turned, it like creaked along. You know, I don't know how to describe that sound, like paper rustling or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. It was really creaky.
I've got the sound in my head.
Okay.
I think our bed does the same thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. So our bed is like the mattress itself is just so like loud and creaky. And so anytime you turn or anything like that, it makes noises. So when I woke up, it was like a loud creaking sound, and it woke me up, and I'm a deep sleeper. So I was like, oh my gosh, that was freaky, because I swear it was like somebody was sitting at the end of my bed and got up, right? And I was like, I'm just psyching myself out. There's obviously nobody's in the house. The doors are locked. There's nothing. There's no way it could be anything. So I was like, you know what? It's probably I turned in my sleep pretty hard and made the loud creak like that. So I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my body super hard and real quick, because I was freaking myself out, so that way I could mimic the sound and remake the sound. And so I turned my body really hard and flipped over, but it didn't hardly make nearly as loud of a sound as it did. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is freaky, right? So I was like, okay, like what should I do? Because I was so sure that there was something, you know? Because how else could I made the sound of the bed? Like, there's nothing. We didn't have a pet at the time. So I was like, okay, well, what do I do? Like, I mean, there's maybe even like a freaking earthquake, but we live in the panhandle of Texas. There's no way, you know? So there's got to be something. So I was like sitting there, like psyching myself out in the bed. And then all of a sudden in my kitchen, dishes started falling. I swear, I was so freaky.
This is not paranormal. This is 100% paranormal.
So it's so freaky, right? And so I was like, so like creeped out, right? Well, guess what? Monday morning, I decided to look it up, and everyone was talking about the earthquake that they had. So apparently it was an earthquake. The thought literally crossed my head, crossed my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, unless it was like a freaking earthquake or something.
Well, the earthquake explains the dishes, but not the bed.
Well, it could have been strong enough to shake the whole bed. I don't know. So
I'm still gonna go with
I know
ghost.
it's unfortunate that there was an actual earthquake in the panhandle of Texas from all their fracking. That's what it was from. So isn't it sad? That's my only ghost story.
Was there? Did you see or have anything else weird happen in that house?
No. Well, Ian was scared of stuff, but
what do you mean
I know
scared
that's
of
what
stuff?
he was scared of in his room, but he was little at the time. I think he was. He was in there, I think he was like 5 and 6 during that time in his life. So 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds aren't the best at, he may have been 4 also. They aren't the best at communicating and telling their side of like what's going on and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he was always scared. And with little kids, you can never tell. So I was like, I always thought in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, because people, I mean, it's a military base. There's issues that go on, right?
I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like we literally, my dad grew up in that, I grew up in that neighborhood because my dad had a house in a different part of the neighborhood, but on the same old military base. And we knew 2 family friends one was a dad, and then we had a teenage son who both committed suicide in different houses in the base, and that's not uncommon, especially if there are still ex-military people who moved back to that.
Yeah, I mean, people have like PTSD and stuff like that.
Right, some bad
memories.
Bad juju, I guess.
Yeah.
No, bad experiences that they've had to endure, so I don't know. Whatever it may be,
did Ian ever
bad
say,
vibes, bad juju,
did Ian
I don't
ever
know.
say,
I try to block that out of my mind. That's one thing. So I like scary stuff, but I like controlled scary stuff.
So like scary movies?
Like scary movies, something you could turn off at the end. Or like sometimes, and this is probably kind of weird, but I would imagine what if scenarios of like, what if somebody were to come in right now and try to murder me? Or what if there was a ghost on the other side of this curtain? Or like, when you're in the shower and you're washing your face, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost right there. Or like if you're laying down in bed and there was somebody right there face to face with you. Do you do that?
When I shower sometimes. I just think about that. Like I'm washing my hair and then I'm going to open my eyes after like cleaning up my eyes, and there's just going to be like a shadow on the other side of the glass or something.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, nowadays
Sometimes
I know if there's a shadow, it's Katie, but
yeah. So yeah, I freak myself out about stuff like that sometimes, but for fun. Kind of like I feel like I can turn it off. I feel like I have decent control of my mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes, depending on what.
Do you are you like more scared of the scary movies that have like based off of a true story or anything like that? Katie's terrified of those movies.
I mean, I guess so, yeah. I really like, this is probably a little weird, but I really like those exorcism movies and stuff like that. Like, stuff, even, I mean, I guess it depends on your beliefs or whatever, but even stuff that it seems like outlandish, or even like those creatures that are so crazy, like Silent Hill. I like stuff like that. So, and imagining that
Skinwalkers?
it's real or something. Yeah.
There's
I don't
not
know.
enough movies about skinwalkers though. There needs to be more.
Yeah.
I like
Contact
skinwalkers.
some directors.
I saw because I like to get on
Some
TikTok, and I'm
writers.
always on like the haunted side of TikTok, like the scary side of TikTok. There was like a short story I watched the other day that I found on TikTok, and I went to YouTube to go watch it, and it was like I guess the world has ended, and everybody's dead because of skinwalkers, and this guy's and his son, and there's still people like alive, but they're like living quietly and hiding. Well, this guy goes out every day to go get food, salvage food for him and his son, and he's out salvaging food, and he's got his rifle, and he's walking, and then he hears in the background like, "Help! Someone help me, please!" And like the screaming or whatever, because they say when there's skinwalkers, like skinwalkers will mimic people, right, to try and pull you in or something like that, to draw you near, so you think someone's hurt, and then you try and go and save them, and you die.
Right.
So he like walks through this forest, and then he gets on the ground, right, and he's got his rifle, and he's looking into the field, and he can see like it looks like a man, like a weird, creepy looking man walking back like the other direction, and he can hear the screaming, and then I guess his watch starts going off, and then he like stops it, and he looks up, and out of nowhere, like that thing turns around and starts.
Oh my
running towards him.
gosh.
So he gets up and takes off running, and it was like a cool little Skinwalker
Yeah.
short. It was like 20 minutes long, but it was actually pretty cool. And I was like, see, we need
I
more
love stuff
good
like that.
Good scary movies like that these days.
Mm-hmm.
Or The Conjuring. The Conjuring's my favorite movie.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I didn't know
great-
it was your favorite.
I think it's one of my favorites. Just because I mean, the storyline's not actually real. Like, I don't know if you know that, but like the whole, I thought forever that it was like accurate, and it's accurate to an extent, but not as accurate as I thought. Like, so like in the movie, it depicts Ed and Lorraine Warren. They go in and they like cleanse her or whatever at the end of the movie, and like they live happily ever after. That's actually not the case. What really happened was they went to the house because the Perrin family were having like all of these paranormal experiences, and they called Ed and Lorraine Warren there to try and help them. Well, they started the investigation, but then there was a moment where the mom of the Perrin family, like just like in the movie, she actually got like lifted in the air and thrown. Like, apparently, I don't think there's any footage or anything, but like the people that were there said she was like thrown across the room.
Yeah.
And like the activity was getting way worse, and she was being like, she would wake up with these crazy bruises and like scratches and all kinds of stuff like that. So the husband was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and kicked them out. And he told Ed and Lorraine Warren he didn't want them to come back. So they left, and then that was how that whole story actually ended. Now the Perrin family, I think for like many years to come, like 10 plus years to come, they lived there and just kind of dealt with all of the activity and stuff. And then eventually, I think once they had enough money, they had moved out and moved somewhere else, but ultimately they didn't have the money to move out, so they just dealt with it. So now the house just gets like bought and sold by different people. So now the people that own it actually have like a paranormal background, and they actually let people do investigations in the house and stuff. It's a pretty creepy house. You can actually rent it and like stay there too.
Like Airbnb.
I don't know if you can Airbnb it, but I know you can like stay
Like
the night there.
reserve it or something.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I told Katie, I was like, this is, it's not a bad idea. Maybe I just do like a on the road podcast and do something like in creepy houses or like haunted hotels or something. Like the Stanley Hotel. I would love to do an episode at the Stanley Hotel.
Yeah. That would
Have
be
you
cool.
seen that movie, The Shining?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
But that hotel room, I think it's different in the movie. I can't remember that. It's been so long since I watched it, but the actual hotel room number is like 217, and it's actually really hard to book that hotel room at the hotel.
Because it's always booked out so far in advance.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
But I would like to go stay there.
Yeah.
You imagine like doing a podcast in the hotel
I know,
room,
that would be so
and then
cool.
it's quiet for a second, and you hear something whisper, or you hear
Oh my
voices in the actual recordings when you look at it later.
That'd be so freaky.
Or imagine just sitting just imagine that we're sitting in the hotel room and we're doing this podcast, and you're just sitting there talking, and then things start moving and you start seeing figures or crap like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I would do that.
For you. For you.
She said, I'd be asleep and I'd act like I'm asleep.
Yeah, I'd be like, exactly. I would at least act like I'm asleep. Like, oh my gosh. Like, no, I can't see anything. I don't know what you're talking about, Sammy. There's nothing here. And then just roll over and go to sleep. We're like, no. You stay up, talk to the ghosts, whatever. Have your fun. I'm going to sleep.
That would be cool. Sit there, have like a whole conversation, maybe read some like Reddits and just leave the other microphone on.
Yeah.
And then go back through the audio. Imagine you hear something. Oh my God. Ideas here.
There's this anime. I forgot what it's called. I have to look it up. It's like, I think it's something that starts with M, like Maruko-chan or something. Did I tell you about it? And it's like it's a scary one. Mm-hmm. I like it. I want to say cute, but it's not cute, but it's cute. So like this girl, because you were talking about it, like I would just pretend like nothing would happen. I was like, you know what, I would. And then it reminded me of this anime because this girl starts seeing ghosts, like really freaky, scary kind of ghost creatures. And every time she has to pretend like she can't see it. And they're all like with the, like those demon voices, you know how they overlap voices? Mm-hmm. So the like ghost will speak in that creepy voice of like, can you see me or whatever? And then we'll be like staring at her, like getting in her face, and they're like really freaky looking. And she's just like, don't look, don't acknowledge it. And they'll go away. And then they go away. But every time she like almost slips up because she's like wanting to cry or whatever. And she's talking to her friend, but the ghost thing came like right in between. And she's like has to look through it and not meet his eyes. And she's like crying her ghost. And then like the people around her can't see them. So they're like, is she okay? Like, what's going on? I don't know. You should look it up. I'll send you the name.
What's it called?
I don't know. It starts with an M. I think it's like, I don't know. It's the name of the girl. Mariko-chan. On Crunchyroll and Funimation. This is it. Look, here's like the cover with the scary ghost.
That's a pretty creepy. Is it the blonde that sees the ghost, or is it? Oh, it's the black-haired chick.
Mm-hmm.
She
and
does
the
look
blonde,
like she'd see ghost.
Yeah.
She looks like an emo kid or something.
Yeah. We'll have to put like a little picture on there.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Obviously, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but the picture will take care of that.
Yeah, there's somebody out there that'll probably be like, you're saying it wrong.
Yeah, okay. So I'm telling it right now. No, I don't know how to say it.
When
I wasn't that off, though.
I'm sure.
I mean, like, coming from my memory of something I wasn't sure about. So
you're pretty close.
To say. I did not horrible.
When you said that Ian was scared of his room, did he ever tell you, like, what he was scared of or anything like that?
I swear to you, I just tried to block out that. And then I didn't even think about that until you were like asking about it, because I would be scared about putting him in bed at night because he wouldn't want to go to bed. But I feel like that's another kid thing. But he would always just say he was scared. But the other thing is that he has struggled even as a little kid with suicidal thoughts. I think it's partially from his genetics from his father's side, because we were together in high school. So he has had struggled with depression, anxiety, and like suicidal thoughts as a teenager. Part of it was a manipulation tactic, but
and you're talking about Ian's dad, right?
Yeah, his biological father. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there's a genetic component, especially since on his biological dad's side of the family on both sides have had kind of like substance abuse issues and different things like that, which may be self-treatment of things. And they've been through trauma. It's a lot. That family is dealt with a lot. So anyway, I'm saying is there's probably a genetic component as well. And then, I mean, he had to deal with, but he was younger, like a sudden loss of a parental figure. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. He's literally been in first grade at wanting to kill himself. So Anyway, like, it's something that we've had to
something to do with it, maybe.
Right. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, I don't know. And honestly, I haven't really thought too much about that house a lot until you kind of were asking me about it. So maybe I need more time to think about it.
Yeah, maybe you blocked out all the bad stuff from the house.
Yeah, or maybe he got something in him.
No, I don't.
No, I don't know.
If anyone's got anything, it's my 4-year-old. She's got something. No, I say that seriously, and it's joking, right? But so, Katie, my wife, Katie, and I have always had a joke because every time that, like, in the few houses, in all the houses we've lived in, right, even in Clovis, Artesia, Edgewood, and now here, anytime that we hear something funny or like weird or unexplainable, we say, "Oh, it's Charlie." Our ghost, right? We try to say it's our ghost, Charlie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was one night Katie woke up, and I can't remember if I was home or if I was traveling, but she woke up and she said one of Jocelyn's, or I can't remember if it was Jocelyn or Serenity, but one of their toys that like makes music noise or whatever and lights up was like lighting up and playing a song in the middle of the night. And she was like, ooh. I think I remember her telling me, she was like freaking out. You know what? I was home. We were both asleep. And then she woke me up and it was making noises in the living room. And I think we both looked at each other and we're just like, I didn't hear nothing. And we just went back to bed.
Yeah.
But there was like a time too. Like I remember there was a time we were in Edgewood and Serenity was having trouble sleeping every night. And it was really weird. She would just scream all night long. Mm-hmm. Like just scream in her crib, and she wouldn't sleep at all. And of course, like, you know, normal people would be like, oh, she's going through sleep regression or something like that. But she would just scream. Like, she could sleep, like, during the day, take her naps. But the moment you put her in that crib, she would just, like, scream all night long. So then my mom was like, oh, you know, you need to do, you know, someone gave her Ojo. Someone had to have given her Ojo. Mm. And she was like, you know, bless her with the egg or do the whole egg thing or whatever. So we did the whole egg thing. And when Serenity was born, my mom had given us a cross that she had a priest bless, right? So it was like a blessed cross. And she had given it to Serenity, and my mom was like, oh, you need to, you know, do the whole egg thing or whatever, and then crack it, put it in the water, and then it'll tell you, like, if somebody's wishing bad on you or if somebody's keep throwing negative energy your way or something like that. Well, we did, and the way that the thing looked, my mom was like, you know, somebody's envious of you or something like that. They're giving you Ojo.
It was me because she's so cute.
She's cute. But so then I was like, okay, well, and she was like, all right, you need to, I can't remember how you get rid of the water. You have to do, I think you have to like flush it down the toilet or do something with it. I can't remember. But anyways, she did that, and then she was like, and then I want you to like hang the cross that I gave you over her crib, you know, hang the rosary over her crib, and then see if that helps. And we did that, and I think there was like 1 or 2 more nights of her crying and screaming, and then after that, she like stopped screaming through the night. So now I'm like, all right, Mom, you know, you got some, you know, some little magical things going on over there. So I guess that's what it is, huh?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, you know, there's definitely some weird stuff that goes on. But Serenity, I swear, like, we talked about the whole Charlie thing, and like we would hear stuff and be like, oh, it's Charlie, right? And then we had that whole situation. Well, there was one time here, and my brother-in-law's name is Charlie too, mind you, right? So like whenever we hear Charlie, we're like, what Charlie is she talking about?
Yeah.
She was in the room and she was playing with her dolls, and she said something. She was like talking to herself or like acting like she was talking to somebody, and then she said Charlie, and Katie and I were just like, who's Charlie? Serenity. And she's like, my dolls. And she like said her doll's name was Charlie, and I was like, you wouldn't be talking to somebody over there named Charlie, all right? Because I'm messing around, Charlie. So
could you imagine if you had like one of those kids that are like the creepy kids?
The ones that see things?
No, just like the kids that are just creepy, who are like quiet and they stare at you. I don't know. I haven't met one in person, but you always hear stories of creepy kids.
I mean,
and
I don't think I've ever met one of those
ever
kids.
Woke up. You never like had any? Yeah, okay.
Jocelyn?
Well, she'd wake up and she'd be staring there in your face.
Jocelyn's creepy.
Yeah.
Like, I love my child to death, but like if she has a bad dream and she wakes up in the middle of the night, she'll like quiet. She's super quiet, right? She's like a cat. She's just silent, walking through the house, super silent. And she's small, right? She's kind of petite, so she she's not heavy, so the floor doesn't creak when she's walking. And like Serenity, when she wakes up, you can hear her like heavy feet running down the hallway, and Jocelyn's just like elegantly, quietly walking through the house, right? So in the middle of the night, we'll wake up. Like if she wakes up from a nightmare, she'll come to the room, and she'll crack the door open. But I don't know why she does this. But she doesn't open the door and just make herself known right away. She'll like crack the door open, right? So we'll both wake up and look at the door like, what's going on there? And then the door will slowly open, right? And she doesn't stand on the open side of the door. She will stand behind the door as she's opening it. So you'll slowly see the door open, right, with nobody there, and you're just like, Jocelyn? And then she'll peek her head over, and you'll be like, what's wrong? And she'll be like, I had a nightmare. Kid, you gotta say something like, you about to get wrecked over here. You better stop. God, she does that. It's the worst. So, no, I don't think she's one of them creepy kids, but that's about as creepy as my kid gets. Those are creepy
instances.
She does that stuff all the time. It's so creepy. I guess I've never seen one of those weird kids you're talking about, though.
Mm.
Do you know?
They're probably just instances put together. But, no, I've never met one in person, but...
I would imagine that if
there's people who I've heard saying, "Oh my gosh, so and so's kid is like a creepy kid." I was like, "Oh no, tell me more."
Give me the cheese, man.
Yeah, I want to know everything. Not that I want to share, but just because I want to know. I'm nosy.
I don't think I have anybody that I know that has any creepy kids. At least. No, I don't.
Yeah, there must be just sprinkled throughout.
Yeah,
you'll just have kids.
Some. Those are probably the kids that will end up in a movie later on in life. To be honest,
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Gotta wait for them to grow up and see.
Yeah. How's Ian doing these days?
He's good. Yeah.
Is he still struggling with like the mental health stuff, or?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because he was seeing like a counselor for a while, and he got a lot better about having to like deal with his emotions and how to like handle those intense feelings, you know? And so when they would do like weekly meetings with me at the end of like a session, and we'll be like, what do we talk about? What are our goals? You know, different things like that. And so one of the periodic milestone kind of meetings, she wanted to review like past feelings and past notes and stuff like that. And so we went over everything, and he was like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. And she's like, you don't want to talk about it? And he was like, no, it makes me feel sad, and I don't feel like that anymore. I don't want to die anymore. I just I wanted to, but I don't want to think about that anymore. So I was like, okay. And she was like, oh, okay, well, we don't have to talk about it. But it's like, it breaks my heart, because what kid who you would think, you know, it doesn't have bills to pay, you know, like, you know, stresses of living the kid life, you know, has to deal with those intense feelings like that. It just breaks my heart. That's everyone. If you ask any parent, I really feel like if you ask any single parent what their worst fear is, it's losing their kid. It's something happening to their kid. I mean, I just feel like it's an innate thing. If you love your child and I mean, they're your everything. Mm-hmm. People lay down their lives for their children's no second thoughts because of just how deep that love goes and that care goes for your child, you know? So to have him dealing with something that I can't just fix for him, and I unfortunately fortunately, I've never had to deal with feelings like that. I've never wanted to die, so I've never had to deal with feelings of suicidal thoughts. So I don't have the necessary coping mechanisms in place in order to combat those things. I have limited experience in that, and so that's another feeling of helplessness as a parent on my end that I've really had to lean heavily trying to learn skills to help my child deal with those feelings from an actual professional.
Right. I mean, it sounds like he's making progress.
Yeah, and he's got a much better support system in place. He's developed some of those skills on how to deal with those feelings. Sometimes when he gets really angry, I guess what I've sort of noticed is that sometimes people turn on themselves or they turn on others as a way to lash out for whatever strong feelings. And I feel like his tendency is to turn inwards and be really hard on himself. And I have that tendency as well, but I've never had to, again, deal with suicidal thoughts or anything like that. So whenever he has really strong feelings, he beats himself up, or he says, like, and we've talked about certain things. Sometimes he'll write down things that you like, I hate myself, I want to die, but out of intense anger or frustration and not deep rooted sadness. I don't know. It's different. And then I talked to him about it and he was like, I was just really angry. I was like, well, you shouldn't do that kind of situation. But no, he has not had to. He has learned how to communicate when he needs more attention or when he needs to talk or something like that. So I feel a lot better about that because he doesn't have to get to that point where it's intense. So that way he can have an outlet and talk about stuff.
Right. No, I mean, it's difficult. I was just telling Katie, I don't talk about it a lot, but like when I was younger, I had suicidal thoughts too, right? A lot of it was when I was, God, I don't even know how old I was. But a lot of it wasn't like out of genuine sadness. A lot of it was anger, which, I've grown up with a lot of like anger that I've had to learn how to control. And I think a lot of it was habits that I learned from like how my dad and my family deals with their emotions. Yeah. Right. So I just kind of learned how to deal with it that way. But then as well as too, like I'm just an angry person. Like my mom used to tell me growing up, you have anger management. You have anger management all the time. Like I'd get mad and she'd be like, you need to see a doctor for anger management. And she would tell me all the time. Right. And then being an adult and still being an angry person, I started to like kind of see those tendencies, and then being with Katie and Katie not being afraid to tell me that I'm always pissed off or doing something stupid, then I started seeing like a therapist or whatever, and realizing that like I get frustrated. A lot of it comes from my anxiety, right? So I have like really crazy anxiety where I feel like I have a lot to do, and then I get like crazy anxious because I don't feel like I have enough time. So then I start to get like really hot, like just kind of see red and just get super angry. So then when I am like super anxious and like I would see a lot of this at work, right? Dealing with the techs and stuff like that. And then where I would just be so angry or just so anxious or so overwhelmed or feeling of overwhelmed. And it wasn't even that I was overwhelmed. It would be like small things where it'd be like something else I needed to get done or something else. But or if I had plans or I had something I wanted to do and I couldn't get to it because my plans had to shift somewhere else, it would immediately just make me feel super overwhelmed, like this weird, overwhelming, like, feeling of, like, oh, my God, I can't get this done, and it would just really frustrate me. And that's where, like, the outburst of anger would come from. And so that was how I kind of handled that. But going back to, like I said, when I was younger, dealing with the whole divorce and stuff, and my dad and my mom and, like, that whole family situation and stuff going on with my dad being a drunk, was always mad, right? So whenever I would get mad or I would get like super pissed off, I'd start crying, and then when I'd start crying, I'd be like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be alive. I'd like cry myself in the room, and then I was getting bullied too, right? So a lot of it, there was a whole, so I definitely can see where like strong emotions drive those type of feelings and thoughts and stuff. But I do say though that like trauma definitely has a lot to do with like anxiety and depression and stuff like that. Like even just separation, right? Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
you and your ex like separating, and then him like knowing that, right, can cause a lot of like whether we believe it or not, right, can cause trauma or just thoughts of like why aren't mom and dad together or stuff like that, right? And some kids handle things a lot differently or better than some other kids. Like I know some people whose parents divorced and it doesn't really bother them, right? But I think a lot of that also depends on like your age. Like my sister was older when my mom and dad divorced, so there was like little to no impact on her. She just kind of saw my dad for what he was doing, and it made her more frustrated than anything. Me being younger, I didn't understand anything, so I didn't know how to like direct my emotions or how to take care of my emotions and stuff like that. So I guess I can understand kind of like how Ian feels, or like how what you're talking about whenever he gets angry and he kind of writes those things. I can see that. Emotion drives a lot of stuff. It's so crazy how emotion drives so much stuff. Emotion drives everything, right? Decisions to get married is based off of emotions. Decisions to get divorced are usually based off what? Emotions, right? I mean, everything ends up being built off of emotions. So it's such a weird thing. Mental health is a weird topic.
Yeah. I mean, and then emotions also are a good indicator for understanding how you really feel about stuff. I mean, that's literally how you feel about it. You know, it's an indicator of, you know, if you feel like things are unjustified, or if you feel like there's something that you need to address. If you have those strong, any emotions. But, I mean, it's a good indicator, a tool to use to your advantage to think things through and how to handle certain situations. Don't you think? Or
no, absolutely. To like what you're saying, you're absolutely right. Like, it's like could be your mind or your body telling you like if something's making you mad, it's probably not a situation that you want to be in or should be in. Like if you have a job that pisses you off every day, you probably shouldn't have that job. Realistically, right?
Yeah, just think twice about it.
Yeah, right? Because if you're going home mad all the time, well, you know, your work life, how it makes you feel tends to kind of mix in with your personal life. You come home pissed off all the time, what are you going to do? You're going to be pissed off at somebody. So who else to be pissed off at than your family if you're mad all the time, right? Makes sense. It does. But back to what I was saying, though, mental health is such a weird thing to talk about these days. Like, and I'm so happy that, like, people are starting to, like, open up. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they had mentioned mental health, and they were like, yeah, you know, COVID really brought it out. Like, people didn't really used to talk about it. But then I don't think people really realize, like, when you're isolated, secluded, like everybody was during COVID, you kind of have to think about things.
Less
right?
distractions.
Yeah, like, so for example, like myself, I have a form of depression. I can't remember what the name of it is. But I drown myself in work to not think about things, right? It's something that I had to like become self-aware of. And I think a lot of people do the exact same thing, right? And not necessarily saying that they have depression or anything like that, but I think a lot of people drown themselves in like being busy, working, partying, whatever it is, right? Whatever their you know, their flavor is. They're out doing stuff or whatever, but being able to keep themselves busy so that they don't think on the things that they really need or should think on, right, is how people were living before COVID. But then when COVID happened and everything shut down, the partying stopped, the going to work stopped, the social interaction stopped, and people were secluded and in the house and by themselves, like, for months, right? Then people started realizing, like, oh, shit, maybe I'm depressed, or, oh, shit, maybe I'm not feeling well. Like, I want to say COVID, statistically speaking, suicide in men, like, rose, like, 75% during the whole COVID era. So it's, like, there was definitely, like, a big change in how people view mental health and stuff like that during the whole COVID thing. But it's a lot more open now, too, which is really good.
It's interesting, too, because I remember reading stuff about how domestic violence increased significantly as well.
Yeah, Katie,
so it shows
Katie beat me up quite a few times during COVID.
Peeks around the corner. What are you talking about?
She's going to beat me later tonight now. Anyways. Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, think about it. You have people that are in a house all the time. I'm sure the divorce rate went up like crazy too, right? I'm sure these people were sitting in a room and they were just like.
There should be like some big giant like meta-analysis evaluating like all the different impactful things that people had to deal with due to COVID. I'm sure as time progresses, there's going to be stuff put together.
There'll probably be a movie.
It'll
be in history books.
Well, for sure.
Like our kids are going to be reading about us. Like
we're going to get interviewed by little
70 years.
second graders and third graders. And Grandpa, what happened during COVID-19?
Yeah. They're going to be asking us, like, what did you do during the big COVID?
Right.
That's what they're going to call it, the big COVID.
It's the big COVID? Yeah. The big like, one, not the small one.
Yeah. You know how people talk about, like, the Dust Bowl, right? That's how they'll be. They'll reference it, the big COVID.
Yeah.
The big 19. Ooh.
Mark it down right now. Yeah.
The big 19. That's what we'll call it. No, I mean, it's...
Even though it's mostly affected us in 2020.
Yeah. I never really took COVID. I took COVID serious, right? But I never took it, like, crazy serious.
You didn't over stress.
There were some people that went crazy.
Yeah.
I still see people driving with masks on. I don't understand it.
Maybe they just can't get vaccinated and they're high risk.
Maybe. But they're driving by themselves in their car.
Oh, because they're dumb. Maybe, okay, I've legit drove in the car by myself with my mask on, but because I got so used to wearing a mask, so I forgot to take it off. And then I'll be in the middle of driving and I'm at the stop and I'm like, take my mask off, have it hang off of one ear. But I got used to wearing a mask because I had to wear it so much.
I mean, I wore the masks, but I never wore it in the car. And I would
have it hang from one ear.
I still see. I'm talking like fully strapped driving with their mask on in
Maybe
their car.
they just are comfortable or a fashion statement.
Fully alone. I'm like.
They wanted to be a ninja, okay?
No. No.
It was black, okay? And they had a whole ninja outfit. You just didn't see that part.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I just didn't see the ninja outfit. It was such a crazy time, though. But I mean, honestly, that's where I'm sure you're right. There should be a study. You should do a study.
We should figure something out.
You should do a study. There was some good that came from COVID, though. Do you know how many like remote jobs there are these days?
Oh, that's true. People had to adjust and adapt. So, yeah. Yeah. And it's becoming another thing that's I feel like has been a hot topic of discussion is like a shortened work week or like hybrid, like half at home, whatever the words I'm trying to use. Half in office. Half in
office, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of jobs. Like, so we have our Orlando office. We have a lot of like composite managers and like project managers, upper management. They all work out of like the Orlando office. And so whenever everything shut down for COVID, they were all working from home, right? Like that was the huge. Luckily, people were able to work from home, right? Because that's their job allows them to. But then when COVID kind of started to like slip away, and rules started to kind of lift, and things were kind of going back to somewhat normal, they did the whole halfway work from home, halfway work from the office thing. And I think they still have that in place. But I also realized too, like prior, I think even my job position before would have like required me to move to Orlando, but now everybody's remote now. I mean, I seriously don't think I go a day without hearing someone's kids in the background on a meeting or something, right? But nobody cares, right? Because it's so normal now.
Right.
It's been normalized, so it's not a big deal anymore. But
people can be people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the head of whoever or whatever doesn't, it's just a person like the rest of us. They got families and kids and stuff, and I think that's become a lot more normalized in the corporate world, I think. So it's pretty cool. That's a positive. And I think another big positive, like we were talking about, mental health is like socially accepted now. There's a lot more stuff that's socially accepted now.
And more studies, more research, more funding.
Yeah, it's not wrong. I mean, hell, I don't see why not. Yeah, there's a lot of people that talk about it now. I have a lot of favorite rappers that do nothing, like they rap about like mental health experiences and stuff like that. But a lot of it's like, it's just relatable.
Right.
I think a lot of people relate to like different scenarios, right? I think the big one too is men didn't used to be able to talk about certain things in
Even
the
just
past.
emotions other than anger. I feel like.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. Men didn't like. There wasn't like a. I think even still, like.
Oh yeah.
Talking with certain men, people don't like to talk about feelings.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. I have some friends I've tried to talk to about stuff and they kind of shut down, or they don't want to talk about it. But I have some friends that'll openly tell me this, everything.
Yeah. An overshare.
Well, I don't think overshare, but I mean, people have to
They're
talk
just
to
open.
somebody. Yeah, like people have to talk to somebody. That's kind of why I wanted to do the whole podcast, right? Because I wanted to like, the two things that I wanted to do on this podcast, right? The first thing is to be able to talk about like people's scary stories, right? Like their stories, like Katie's got these stories from her grandma's house where she saw like full body apparitions and stuff like that, right? And those are interesting stories to talk about because it's like, I for one have had some like paranormal stuff happen, right? Like some small things, but I've never really had like that shakes me down to my core type of scary, right? Like I've never had anything like that. So it's so interesting to hear other people's stories. And so I wanted the podcast, one, for that, right? To hear people's stories, because I'm sure someone's got some crazy wild story out there that just probably should be made into a movie, and we're going to make it happen, right here. But the other thing, too, is, like I was saying, there's a lot of people, men, women, both alike, that don't talk about what they should be talking about, right? And maybe it's because they don't feel comfortable talking about it to therapists or just to their spouse or just to, whoever or whatever. But I would love for this podcast to be where people could come and then feel comfortable enough to even if it's a little bit, it doesn't even have to be telling me your whole story. It doesn't even have to be talking about everything. Just
a little experience.
Talk,
a little piece of their life, a snapshot.
Yeah, and maybe they'll feel comfortable enough to talk about the things that they don't want to talk about, and then they leave here feeling better.
Yeah.
Or feeling like they were able to talk about something that they haven't been able to, right? Mm-hmm. That's what my goal is with this podcast, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this whole thing, to let people have an outlet to talk about, one, the spookies, right, and two, mental health. The spookies, for sure. For sure. I want to hear everybody's scary stories.
I have one other when I was scared story. It's just stupid, but it makes me laugh every time. It's a stupid story.
All right, tell me.
And then I have one other story that's, I swear to you, is 100% real. I will recount to you everything that I experienced, but it's not scary. Well, I mean, it's kind of scary, I guess, depending on the way you look at it, but I was never scared. Kind of.
Tell me that story.
It's different. Well, let me tell you the other one because it's stupid and it's really short. Okay. This is what I was trying to tell you last night, but you're like, no, now save it. I was like, but it's stupid and short. I just want to tell you because it makes me laugh. And you're like, save it. I'm like, fine. So here, I saved it. Okay. So we were visiting my grandparents in Arizona. And it was me, my boyfriend, my sister, and her boyfriend, and my son was with us on the trip as well. But my grandparents were like, we'll watch Ian, my son. We'll watch him. Y'all go out. Y'all are young adults. Go do something fun. So we're like, okay, cool. So we went to the town. Like, they live kind of just on the very outskirts of the town. Mm-hmm. And so we went. They have a university there. So we were there. And went to the college campus hangout things, and we had some drinks and pizza, nothing too crazy or anything. And then we're like, okay, it's kind of, I think it was 1:00 in the morning. It was late. It was maybe even later. And we were driving back to go home. So I was the driver. And everyone else was in, we're driving a Tahoe. And so I was driving, and it starts getting really dark because there's no street lights, and there's nothing else. We're in the middle of a desert, And there's big saguaro cactuses everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's like other things like, I don't know, like yucca plants or something, all everywhere, right? And so I'm just driving along this road. It's so dark. Only you can see the headlights and a couple houses spread out as you're driving. So I was just driving along. Where just got back from a bar and, you know, not thinking about anything. And as I was driving, I swear I thought I saw somebody step out in front, like was like on the side of the road and was about to step out. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I screamed so loud and I made everybody else yell in the car. And I felt like, have you ever jumped like out of your skin? You feel like that's what I thought was happening. I feel like I almost had an out-of-body experience that it like scared the crap out of me. And it was a saguaro cactus.
As you were telling the story, I literally was like, it was a cactus.
It was a cactus.
Dang. Those things are huge.
They're huge.
I've never
like
seen.
slightly leaning. It was like kind of looked like a person. And it was, because it was so pitch dark. And until we got right up there, it's not like we had those high beam fancy lights on.
Right.
And it was in the middle of the night. And I said, like, there's a couple houses. I mean, they're spread out, but I don't want to put my brights on in somebody's house, you know, when we were passing by or anything. So I'm just driving and that cactus like leaned over and with the arms stuck out. I swear, I was like, oh my gosh. I screamed, but it was just a cactus. So.
Those things are huge.
They're so huge.
You know, you see the cartoons that have like the giant cactus and they're like 6 foot, 7 foot tall or whatever. And then you don't really like, you know,
it doesn't register.
Cactus aren't that big, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm used to like these New Mexico cactus, the
right.
one that like you're walking on the hiking trails and they poke you and you kick them because they piss you off. They poke you some more. Right? I'm used to those. So when we went to Arizona recently, right, I know exactly what you're talking about. These things are freaking huge.
Yeah.
We even stopped to put gas and Katie had to take a picture of one of them because she's never seen one that huge.
Yeah.
They're giant.
They're like double. Like me and Jared took a picture by one when we first started dating because we drove to meet my grandparents when we first started dating. And we took a picture by the saguaro cactus and it's at least double our height.
Like 10 foot tall.
Yeah, at least.
11 foot tall. Yeah, they're huge.
So
that's pretty
tall.
tall. That's a tall human, though. I mean, yeah.
That's a tall human. It was probably the arm. I don't know.
It was from a
Maybe
distance,
it was like
they might have
Slender
looked
Man or
small.
something.
Yeah, I'd have definitely ran over that cactus if it was Slender Man.
Kept on going.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, I'm
funny.
in a Tahoe. I might as well. I'm big enough.
You'd have been fine. Well, I don't know.
Those things have like wood, like what's it called? Like in the ridges, there's
Bark?
like a woody stuff in the inside
So
to help like a skeleton to hold it up. You know, that's a
it's
lot of water and a lot of weight to hold up.
They do have a lot of water in them, don't they? Yeah, if I ever got stuck out there, I'd cut one up. Try to get the water.
I don't know if they're that moisture filled. We should find out. Let's get a botanist that is an expert in desert plants. Tell you how to survive out in the desert.
I'll just watch Bear Grylls.
No.
I'll be fine.
We got this.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Bear Grylls, you know, for anybody watching. You'll be just fine. All right, so tell me your third story. Your
Okay, so this is not as well. I didn't feel scared. I mean, it was scary, but not in the traditional sense.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I was about 14-ish, give or take, early teens, and I went with my dad and my sisters. I'm the oldest out of several sisters, several family members. And my parents are divorced, so I have half the siblings. But so I have a lot of siblings, and I was with my dad, and we had 2 of my sisters, and I believe my stepsister was there that day as well. And we had family friends, kids who were like in the neighborhood. And there were like 2 boys and a girl, I think. So anyway, my youngest sister is like about 4. We're about 10 years apart. So if I was about 14, she was about 4. That's what I'm thinking was the timeline. So we went to this big old lake we only had to drive a few hours to get to. And we're all swimming out. And in the middle of this lake is this like sandbar island type thing. Mm-hmm. So as kids, we're like, we're going to swim over there. So my dad put my little sister who can't swim on his back and was going to swim out there so we could all go. And I was just going to wait on the shore because I'm too cool. I was a cool teenager and didn't want to have to go out there.
All right.
I was just going to sit there, like, probably on my phone or I don't know what I was doing, honestly. I was just sitting at the shore. And so everybody starts swimming out to this little island. And there's, like, I don't know. So basically, my dad was saying that swimming out there, he literally felt like somebody was like pulling him down underwater. Like his leg started cramping up. He couldn't kick anymore. And he just slowly started sinking underwater. And my little sister, Autumn, was on his back. And he was like, Aubrey. I was like, what? Come get your sister. And I was like, okay. So I swam out to him, which was about halfway there to the island, and I got her on my back. No big deal. I was in shape, pretty athletic-ish, and was like so ready. And I was like, okay, well, and he's like, okay, go back to shore. And I was like, we're already halfway there. I don't mind. Like, I feel completely fine. I'll just swim the rest of the way there. And he was like, no, turn around and go back to the shore. So I was like, okay. So I start swimming back, and my dad already got back to the shore. And I start sinking under. And I got tired, you know. I wasn't making much effort towards the distance because I kind of started going back to the sandbar, like in the island, and he told me no. So I was swimming back this way. And so my dad had already made it to the shore because he already had a head start, basically. And I was sinking down too. My legs started feeling heavy. I felt like I wasn't kicking enough, you know? And so I was like, well, I got the solution. You don't have to kick if you can float, you know? So I put my sister, Autumn, and I put her on my chest. And I just started like doing like what is that?
The little floating on your back thing?
Yeah, floating on my back and just moving my arms, you know, just going like that. And I start sinking more and more and more. And eventually I couldn't keep my head above the water when I was leaning back. So I was like, okay. My sister starts freaking out. She starts screaming, but obviously she can't swim. And she's like, oh my gosh, we're going to drown. I was like, she said something along the lines of that. She's like, there's the water, but in like 4-year-olds terms, you know, whatever she said. Something along the lines of we're going to drown, but 4-year-old talk of like, there's water or something. And I was like, no, it's fine. We're going to be fine. It's okay. Calm down. So she's like, okay. And so I'm like starting to sinking more and more. I was like kicking and moving my arms with all my might, just trying to tread water. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't keep my head up. And I literally, a thought went through my head. I was like, this would be so much easier if I didn't have to be carrying her. Like, we're going underwater. We're drowning. I can't hold her. If I just like were to let her go, then I should be okay. And then I was like, I can't let her go. You know what I mean? Like, the thought crossed my head for a second. And then I was like,
or me drown. Her drown, me drown.
And then I was like, big sister instincts, I'll drown. So that's basically, you know, what was starting to happen. I was like, what? Like, literally, I was like appalled that I thought that. And I was like, I can't let her go. And so I was like, okay. So what I did is like, I transferred her because people are lighter in the water. You know, I transferred her in my chest and I started holding her with my hands to keep her head above the water. And I was just kicking and I couldn't keep my head above the water. And eventually I literally had my hand on her chest and my arm completely raised above me, kicking with all of my might, just trying to keep her head above the water, and I'm running out of air. I can, like, my chest is burning, and I'm trying to very slowly let the air bubbles out, and I let all of my air out, and my chest is like burning. And I was like, I have to breathe. I can't not breathe. And so I take a breath in, like just like probably like a half breath, and I breathed in air. And so I was like, that was freaky. And I was like swimming some more, and I was like, my chest is hurting. I let the air out, and it's burning. And I was like, F it. And I took like a real breath because I was like, that was freaky, but whatever. So I took a real breath in, and it was air. And I just kept kicking and swimming and trying to keep her above, and I kept going. And like, again, my body felt like it was just not responding. My arm was completely reached above my head, and all I had in my head was that I need to keep her head above water. And I swear to you, during that period in time, and when I don't know how long I was under the water, but I know every time I was taking a breath, I didn't know when it was going to be my last breath, and I was completely submerged underwater. And I swear to you, I took 3 full breaths. So I took that half breath, and then I took 3 additional full breaths underwater. I don't know. You take with that information that you want to do. I don't know if there was just air in my lungs and I rebreathed in the air in my airway, and I just happened to have enough to fill a whole breath, or my brain was tricking me and I breathed in water and thought I was fine, but I didn't come out like coughing, water drowning, or whatever, anything like that, right? I don't know. Do with that information what you will. I decided to Google it one day and see if there's anything to it. I haven't seen anybody literally breathing underwater. So there it goes.
It died. All right.
So I don't know, but I swear to you, I was completely underwater. I took 3.5 breaths, and I didn't want to keep on breathing. But by the time my dad finally came over and grabbed Autumn off of me, I was able to kind of get back up and float by myself again. And my dad said that he was looking around for me and Autumn, trying to figure out, because he said he had to catch his breath and calm down and try and figure out what was going on. And he said he couldn't see me, and then all he could see was Autumn's head above water, and she was like crying or something. And so then he knew what was going on. He swam straight to me and grabbed her off of me, and then we were trying so hard to float back afterward. But yeah. I don't know. And the way that my dad describes it, he's so much better descriptive. He's like, it felt so strange because it felt like somebody was pulling us underwater, like pulling me down, I just knew that whatever I could do, it wasn't enough. For some reason, a little 4-year-old, half of her body underwater, just swimming the rest of the way back to shore, it wasn't enough. And I was drowning, and I didn't know what to do. And my lungs were burning, and I breathed in fine 3 full times, because I remember the first time thinking, like, it was a little bit of a breath, thinking it was a fluke. And I was like ready to accept my fate, basically.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's like that. Okay, that's paranormal. That's
do with that what you will.
There is something to go. What lake is this?
I have to ask my dad. I don't know. I'll have to ask my dad. I'll call him.
Yeah, ask him for me and figure out what lake this is, so I know never to go there. Not to swim to the island too, right? Make sure I definitely don't go to the island. Maybe I'll go try that.
Well, some of the kids, they were teenagers. Some of the kids, they were having trouble. They got to the island fine, and then they were trying to swim back, but they couldn't. And he was like, my dad was yelling at them, go back to the island, because they weren't that far out. He's like, go back to the island, go back to the island. And then he had to yell at somebody who had a boat. He's like, y'all are not that far. Get y'all butts over here and rescue these freaking kids. They're literally about to drown. What's wrong with you? He was pissed. Yeah. But that's my dad kind of flies off the handle sometimes. I mean, he doesn't. But like when something like that happens, he gets very expressively angry.
That's a pretty crazy story, though.
Yeah.
That's paranormal. I mean, it's not scary.
Yeah, it could be. And there could be a scientific explanation. It could not be. And I'm okay with it or not having an answer. I have yet to find an answer. I don't know. All I know is I don't know. But that is my experience.
Grew some gills like Harry Potter.
I grew some gills.
Some gillyweed?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. I was swimming and like, that tastes so good. Keep going, keep going.
There you go. They solved it. Harry Potter has all of the answers.
Yeah. See?
That's an interesting story. I'm gonna find
that's
out what lake it is.
That's the only thing that's ever.
Find out what lake it is. I'm gonna end up Googling it. I'm probably gonna spend some time tonight and Google it and see if anybody else has had any weird or underwater experiences at the same
lake.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe there's like some sort of like weird thing that's going on there. Are you religious at all?
Yes, but not. Yes, but I'm not really superstitious. Or whatever.
Maybe it was.
And if there's any like
angel?
ghosty things, well, see, that's another thing that somebody had told me. I was like, it's your guardian angel, and so part of me thinks like maybe it was, but at the same time, I'm okay with just saying I don't know. You know what I mean? So who am I to say whatever anybody wants to say, whatever it is? That's fine. I just know I can't explain it.
Yeah, that's a whole experience right there.
Yeah.
See, I want something like that to happen, but my luck, I'd die. My luck, I would just die. I would just drown. I would I'd be like, you know what? Aubrey told me that story. And it'd just be water. And I'd be like, and I would just drown. That's what would happen to me. I don't get the cool experiences like that.
I don't know.
Or maybe if I'm I have to carry serenity for it to happen.
That's what it is. Be like, should I let my daughter drown? No, I will not let my daughter drown.
And there it is.
There it is. The breath of life.
The air will start to just circulate in.
Yeah.
You'll see me walking under there with a big
bubble.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, figure out what lake that is, and then I'm going to look into it. Now I'm interested now.
Yeah.
But, well, anyways, well, I think we're out of time here. The cameras both died, so I do appreciate you jumping on the show and doing my first episode with me.
Yeah,
it's actually,
happy to.
We actually talked for quite a while, and to be honest, I kind of winged it the whole time. So I think this will be a very interesting episode. I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do with the cameras and stuff.
Mm.
But whatever, it'll be fine. I'll figure it out. First episode, all right? There's flukes, okay? Don't judge me. Don't sue me. But cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you. I'll make sure to let you know about that. I'm texting my dad right now.
Yeah, and let me know about your buddy, too.
Okay, will do.
All right.